Hello everyone, last Bagua Neigong explanation video was entirely dedicated to footwork drills, and this time we will cover the rest of the forms, essentially all the forms that this form set contains. And eventually I would provide some insight, some information on how to perform those forms, some details that might not be seen when I just post those videos with a bad practice. Although bad practice is extremely important because what is known as gunfu, like your internal mastery of whatever, it just grows naturally when you consistently doing something. Like every single day you do the form, and this makes your gunfu growing. But in order to be able to do that, you need to make sure that you know what exactly you're practicing. So we get started with the very first form. And the first form is a very simple static form. The idea is you just hold to, you may think of invisible balls or just maybe glasses of coffee. So the idea is that the shoulders should be completely relaxed, the elbows should be dropped down, and the chi flows to the very fingertips. This is quite important relaxation technique, I would say. So, although from the outer perspective it looks like I have a static position with my arms, internally chi flows from my shoulders and then to the elbows downwards and up to, I mean, down to the very fingertips. So, this constant relaxation flow should be maintained during you walk the circle. The step has been described in great details in the previous explanation video, so for those of you who didn't check that out, I highly recommend doing so because footwork is the very essence behind the entire art of Bagua. So the next form is intended to work out what is known as the belt meridian. In front of belt meridian, we have a dantian, the most important center in internal martial arts and qigong in general. And behind, we have kidneys, which is meant to be the storage of the life energy. This exercise allows to connect these two all together, and this generally benefits what is known as the breath of life, a term from the internal Taoist alchemy. In simple words, it allows you to just feel better and like feel the power to do something. But in order to achieve this, a certain physical condition should be met. So one of the most important things here, like in many other forms as well, is to again not just relaxing the shoulders, but also make a certain type of movement within the shoulder. Your shoulder should move away so that it sort of switches back and forth from the front side to the rear side. And here, for instance, we have an exercise that helps to develop this ability of shoulders to switch like forwards and backwards. Now, just to give you an idea why tension in shoulders is a bad thing, let me demonstrate an example. So let's say I grab someone, a master, with his wrist, and he knows exactly how to perform certain martial arts techniques. So what he may try to do, he may make use of a tension that I have in my shoulder, and in this case, I would be pushed down to the ground in this like way, because essentially what pushes me down is the tension within my shoulder. So when we are doing this type of exercise, the idea is to activate the backwards part of the shoulder And this is very essential and very basic to Bagua in general. So no matter which forms you are doing, this like is very, very basic. We can extend this principle so that the motion goes a bit wider. So if I'm using the so-called Pu step, so this is the step of crawling down beneath, very close to Earth. So this is very classical for Bagua. This is used in double pump change, for instance, and in many other forms. But the idea behind the movement within the shoulder is essentially the same. So if we can have a look at different forms that share exactly the same internal principle, it might get a bit more clear what kind of inner work should have been done in a certain form. So throughout this entire video, I would be trying to showcase different exercises that do share exactly the same principle so that it gets a bit more clear for you, like what in particular are we working with. And finally, I want to emphasize that when doing this particular form, it's quite important to have the sense of what's going behind you when you move. Now, finally, this form combined with the Bagua step. So you just calmly walk the circle, meanwhile doing the form. It takes around one circle to complete the circle with your arms. Again, one circle around belt meridian and one circle on the ground. So this is very like to Earth and Moon are rotating. Like Moon is rotating around its own axis and also around Earth. So you may think of circle around belt meridian like Moon rotates itself, while the circle you're walking with your legs is like the orbit of Moon around the Earth. Or same like Earth may turn around itself and then just turn around the Sun as well. The combination of these two kind of orbits appears essentially in every single form of this form set, and this produces what is known as double spiral movements, which are incredibly beneficial for the internal transformation. Next form is intended to work out the side meridians, those you have to the left and right of your body where the ribs are located. Technically, the circle that is being produced within this form is very similar to the one being done in the previous one. It just goes within a different plane. So previously we have been orbiting around the belt meridian, and here it just goes a bit more vertically. But it's also a circle, so it's quite important to bring your wrists to your ears when you're making this form. And then when your wrists come to your ears, you just release the hands forwards and they turn against the axis if you draw one within your middle finger. So if we think of the previous form, so where the previous form ends, this new form starts. So essentially, it's really hard to say where one form ends and where the other form starts. I'm just trying to show you how you can do this form, second form, starting from the previous one. And here, I just changed the position of my wrists a little bit. So elbows going backwards, and this allows me to perform this exercise. The side view shows this even better. So you see like elbows going backwards, then wrists going to ears, and then releasing, and every motion ends up with G gets back to Dantian. So if we think about the movement within the shoulder joint, it's exactly the same like in the previous exercise. But yeah, here we need to like relax the shoulder and turn it internally like this. And once this has been achieved, we can do exercise nicely. We need to make sure that no tension is there in the shoulder. So it should be very light, and you should feel the flow. And like, what is the flow of chi is like a long story. I will try to cover this. I cannot cover everything in one single video, but the motion should be smooth. Finally, exactly the same idea. Once you have managed to perform the exercise without stepping out the circle, you may then try to connect these two all together. And again, like generally Chinese martial arts, I mean internal Chinese martial arts like Bagua or Taiji or Xinichuan, they do refer the cosmic elements like planets, stars, maybe, or even more abstract things like Taiji, like the Great Limit, literally. But well, doesn't matter really. So this metaphysical concepts that you may think of are represented within the human body, and by doing certain type of exercises we can involve those cosmic processes happening in the universe to occur in our very own bodies, and this helps the transformation. Okay, so the next form, I recommend concentrating on the lower abdomen, also known as dantian, because that's the point around which the entire motion happens. So this cosmic kind of thing where you have like planet turns around the star, it's very commonly used in this kind of Neigong. So you always have a center which is not moving, like it serves as the point to move around. And again, in Bagua, the entire body moves around the center of the circle on the ground. But meanwhile, we have the internal sort of a star, or better to call it a black hole. The black hole is the star with a very huge weight. Like imagine the ball for tennis, and it weighs like the planet Earth. So that would be the black hole. So imagine that your lower abdomen has the weight of the entire Earth. So that's one of the ways how you can think of Dantian. It's very tight, not heavy, it's just very tight. Whatever comes there never comes back. So this kind of double orbiting is the case. And again, just for simplicity, when we're learning the forms, it's a good idea to try a move around your center first, and then when you feel confident moving around your very own center, you then may combine this movement with walking the circle. So every single form, it does exactly the same. It just rotates over the circle, around the circle. So no matter which plane do you use, no matter whether it's like two hands or one hand, the principle is always the same. You just rotate around your dantian, your lower abdomen. And here again, we have exactly the same movement in the shoulder joint. So we just like in the previous form, we start from the previous form. And again, this shows like essentially there is no end and no beginning. So one form flows into another. So if the shoulder is in the right position, we can easily turn left and right. And then we need to turn the shoulder even more, and this involves this double spiral. So I have one spiral in my left hand, another spiral in my right hand. So this principle comes from the double palm change, and I'm now demonstrating it. So at this very point, when we are about to go downwards, have a look at my right arm. So it just does this exact motion that the form is used to work with. Finally, again, when you feel comfortable, you may try to combine this movements. So like especially with this form, it feels like there is nothing in your internal system that is static. So everything is moving in different directions. It just combines all together. And the reason why this is practiced that way, because your mind cannot handle slow movement and also cannot handle smooth movements. Because if you do fast movements and sharp movements, your mind can understand. But if you do slow and spiral movements, your mind just turns off. And this is the practical way of how to stop the flow of thoughts, because you may have either the flow of thoughts or the flow of chi. This is a very important principle. And if you try to stop the flow of thoughts without without invoking the flow of chi, you are not going to succeed. And Chinese say that you simply need to invoke the flow of chi, and this would automatically turn off the flow of thoughts in your mind. It's quite interesting that for Chinese practitioners, the matter of understanding is not the mental effort. For them, the matter of understanding is the matter of how long have you been practicing and how much what is known as kung fu you've gathered by that practice. When you have essentially enough energy being generated with your practice, this results in understanding from within. So don't get bothered too much with how to perform these exercises, but rather focus on the practice itself. Okay, so let's go to the next exercise. And again, just where the last exercise ends, the next one appears. So in this exercise, we do the elbows and the palms. I'm just doing elbow and then elbow outwards and then palm inwards and finally palm outwards. Now, again, we have exactly the same movement like that we have from the very beginning of the form set, start from the first form. And here I demonstrate how the spiral movement may be transposed to this elbow movement. So we have 2 points, one in the inner part of the elbow, another is located on the outer part of the elbow. And these 2 points essentially are those that we used in order to move the elbow. Also, it's quite important to relax the shoulder and put the shoulder backwards like we did in the very first form. And finally, when we transpose from elbow to the palm, you see, like if I use my finger to throw my hand, this is exactly the movement that is happening. So my palm becomes very light, okay? And this is the particular motion that can be done. And this is what should be done, essentially. So the power comes from the waist. Well, essentially, the power comes from the ground, then it gets magnified within the waist, and then it gets applied over the fingertips. That's the traditional Chinese proverb. Generally, I would say that the effort comes through the entire arm. So, like this exercise, which is known as silk reeling in Chan style Taiji, this shares quite similar principles, but in Bagua it's performed in a little bit I would say, strict way. Yeah. And again, in Chen, we have like one spiral movement that goes kai ho, like means open close. So you just condense it internally, and then you make this power expression outside, known as fajin. But in Bagua, we don't have that kind of fudging. Instead, we have this double spirals that does not allow the outer power to get inside our bodies. And this is the guardian principle. So we never let the outer world in. But just to give you an idea in regards to the origins behind this form, it all derives from the single palm change. So the variation of the single palm change of the Chen style Bagua consists of four parts. So we do this elbow elbow, and then we do the palm palm movement. So elbow, and then another elbow movement. But this time I'm not turning like in a single palm change. And also when I do the palm movement, I'm also not moving. So again, elbow moves inwards, then it moves outwards, again inwards, then outwards, inwards, outwards. So this is the single palm change, inwards, outwards, but my legs are involved. I'm making Baiko step here, and by, yes, and ko, okay. But here, I'm just doing the elbow part without doing Baiko with my feet. And this results in a very similar motion. So elbow and elbow. So here we have Baiko, and then the last two exercises of the single palm change. And these two last exercises involve the palms. So we do elbow and elbow, and then we do palm. And this is like, you see, this form in the single palm change, right? And then what do we need to do? We need to, yeah, do this. But we do this in a little bit different way. So it's essentially, this exercise is a single palm change, but without involving Baiko steps. Finally, when you feel confident with the form, when you like feel that you're moving the elbow inwards and outwards, and the palm inwards and outwards as well, you may try to combine the movements of your arms with the steps. And this is one of my favorite forms, to be very honest, because it allows you to work out your very own self quite deeply. Because yeah, this spirals are very, these double spirals are very representative, I would say, within this form. And when you do this, you feel like you turn inwards, and then you like turn outwards. Like I don't even know how to call it, to be very honest. It just happens internally. But if you simply follow the steps being introduced, you may simply experience this on your very own. So, before you experience this on your very own, doesn't pretty much make any sense to describe what you feel, because you would just be imagining what you feel without the real work. But if you work this out, you would gain your very own feeling, and this would be your very own truth, which is more valuable compared to whatever someone else has told you. The next exercise is known as Yin Yang Palm. So Yin and Yang, uh, you know, Yin and Yang are Yin and Yang in Chinese metaphysics. The idea is that you make this movement like in the single palm change again, but it ends up with gathering qi in dantian, concentrating qi in dantian, and then just pushing outwards. So this may be done if you face in the center of the circle you're walking around, and if you are making this for the other hand, for the other side, in this case, motion changes a little bit, but still you end up with a final motion towards the center. Okay, and you can also try to make the form way. So you may put the hands back to the kidneys and then push forwards. This is what happens internally, by the way, within this form. If you don't feel that, you may help yourself with your hands, because hands essentially are moving along the chi flow. On the one hand, on the other hand, the movement of hands invokes the flow of chi. So if you move your hands a certain way, this results in a flow of chi being generated. And again, this is just a matter of time and effort to feel this. And essentially, whatever movement you make with your body would generate the flow of chi. And depending on what kind of movement is that, the flow would be different. If you are making like very fast moves and not spiral, let's say linear, you will be breaking the flow. But yeah, so this is complicated if you try to explain it, but it's much easier when you just practice it. It's exactly the same exercise, but a bit from a closer distance so that you could see this more nicely. And again, from the kidneys, pushing forwards. Now, this part of the single palm change. So I'm just demonstrating the very last part. So when you just turn, okay. So this is the origin of the yin yang palm. You see, like I'm making exactly the same movement, and then instead of doing the Tui Mojan, which is the main palm in Bagua, you just end up with your hands near the dantian, near your center. And this is the piece from Lian Huan Taolu that is also the part of the Bagua that I'm doing. Finally, you just try to bring things together. And yeah, this form might be one of the most complicated, so feel free to pause the video to have a look at the uh, demonstration of the form without circle walking more. Just watch this many times. Hopefully, you will be able to reproduce it. Yeah, so like I prefer to just post the videos where I practice this form without pretty much any explanations, because once you can mimic that, once you can do what I do, I'm not talking about the tiny little internal details, but just, uh, you know, just externally. Let's say you've learned the form, let's say you film yourself on a smartphone, and externally it looks like the same. So someone who doesn't know me or you or this form, he would say that okay, these two guys are performing exactly the same set of exercises. In this case, essentially you no longer need me. You can just practice and reveal things on your very own. Next form is holding a bow in front of the belly, or maybe holding the belly itself. Anyway, you hold something very heavy, and internally you need to relax the shoulders, drop the elbows, and the outer lagoon points, acupuncture lagoon points, the outer ones, are tending towards the earth. Sorry, towards the ground. Yeah. So it's really good, like going down. So holding something heavy, carrying something heavy. So it's so heavy that it may slide along the hand and land on the ground, and you may just roll it further on. So again, you just relax the shoulder. This exact same movement that we've been doing many times before. Every single form starts with this shoulder relaxation. So this is very common. Now you see, like it's like a dead arm, so it does not have any tension inside. Then you form the palm this way, and from the outer lagoon, you like pull yourself downwards. And this kind of palm is the center you are turning around essentially. And again, in some of Taolus, like in Lian Huan, you have motions like this. So this is how it works. Another example. So yeah, but again, essentially we have this palms. So I'm just showing the dynamic aspect. General tip is when your hands are in a fixed position, you don't really need to think about hands much. You would rather be thinking about the steps. And again, I highly recommend to have at least a quick look at the video explaining the footwork drills in Bagua because that is the very essence behind the entire technology. Next few exercises, I intended to work out the meridians of your legs. We start with the toe, and the way how toe meridians work, so those are known as Yin meridians, is very similar to as if you are stepping a Bagua step. So let's say you just step into the toe, like it has been described in the video on footwork, and you just lift the leg, and in this case you have the end point of this particular exercise. Next bunch of meridians are the yin meridians connected to the heel, so those go in backwards. So it's really good to kickstart with this bows towards the leg, and you need to make sure that your hip joint is going within so that eventually you can reach your toe with your head. It might seem impossible, but you just have a look at Chinese sports wushu guys who do that quite nicely. So, say if your head lands on the knee, this is wrong. Your head should try to reach the toe. This is how you know that the position of the hip joint is correct. Now, once that is achieved, you may try this simple exercise. Then goes the outer meridians. So this is very like to kicks in kung fu movies, but you don't necessarily need to kick. It's just enough to stretch the leg. And finally, the inward meridians. So you just sort of this might be thought as you stop opponent's leg from hitting you. This is often seen in kung fu movies as well. So the inner part of the hip is working here and along the entire leg. So this exercise might be a bit more explanatory towards what's happening here. So you just see what's happening. It's much easier to just try to mimic as is rather than to explain. Finally, one of the most complicated exercises is you just may think of an invisible ball lying on the ground, like a football, for instance, and then you just step onto that ball and you start to roll it back and forth. So you just put your leg on this ball and you just roll it. The leg should be relaxed, the hip should be completely relaxed, and all the meridians should be activated. But it's quite complicated to activate all the meridians at once. So you may focus on the very fit of your shoes. This helps. And another way you may try to work out this yin meridians, outer meridians, and inner meridians. Four sides of the leg. So toe, then heel, then the outer side, and finally the inner side. And then you just bring them all together like this. And the same for the other leg. So toe, and then heel meridians, and then all the outer meridians, then all the inner meridians, and then you just bring all together and do the exercise. Finally, we have the relaxation exercise. You don't have to move the hip away. It's not a kick. It's rather uh, just back off kind of thing. This is intended just to relax the legs because they might get tensed after the exercises. So you need to release that tension, hence this kind of exercise. You just need to make sure that palms and feet are moving together. Finally, you want to lower the chi, and we're using our fingers to point directly to the ground in order to achieve this. So you can try the sit down exercise until you find your fingers pointing exactly to the ground. And even if you stand, you still should have a feeling as if your fingertips are touching the very ground. If you don't have that feeling, this means that your shoulders are not relaxed good enough. So try to relax the shoulders more and try to drop the elbows. This would help to get this feeling as if you are just going down and reaching the very ground with your fingertips. Now, the set of exercises for the legs can be done and should be done essentially on the circle. You simply make one circle toe one side, one circle toe another side. Same for heel, same for outer meridians, same for inner meridians. Another important note in regards to the entire set of exercises, it's good to have, I don't know, at least 30 circles each side. So you start walking left, so that the center of the circle would be left hand side. So that's the yang direction. And you walk, say, 30 circles left, then you walk 30 circles right. And then another exercise, 30 circles left, 30 circles right. To be very honest, I never count the circles, but I may say that 30 minutes for the entire form set is the bare minimum. If you do less than 30 minutes, this is not very good, so not very efficient. At least 30 minutes and no longer than 1 hour. Well, you may do like Chinese do, like for 3 hours, but I don't recommend that because you should not do more than it's necessary. Don't be greedy. So, no more than 1 hour. If you feel like you may do it more, you may try, but again, I was trying like 2.5 hours, but that's not very beneficial. You just start slipping when while walking the circle. This is not very good. It's better to have a sharp mind and to work for about 40, 50 minutes with a full concentration rather than idling for 3 hours. So essentially, this is all about the transformation because the reason why we do this form, we want to change our casual way of thinking, way of life. Because when like people say, "How can I empty my mind?" It's not about the mind. It's about the entire body. It's about the entire lifestyle. Because the reason why you have many thoughts in your head is not because you're bad or something, just because the physical principle that works within your body. You mostly using muscles, and this leads to one part of your body getting tensed, over tensed. Others are not working at all, and the lack of balance results in the mind trying to like go back and forth, trying to handle things, but it's not possible because mind cannot essentially control this internal things because mind can only control muscles. Finally, when you feel like you are done and you want to finish the practice, the last direction you've been walking to was the right hand side, so the center. of the circle on the ground was from the right from you. So you're walking there, and then you need to make one last circle to the left to stop the rotation. And after the form, the closing exercise intended to gather the chi into Dantian can also be done. Although this is not the part of Bagua Neigong, this is just a general Qigong exercise. I do it every time I finish the practice. This also appeals to the first exercise, the cleansing exercise, which is also not the part of Bagua Neigong, but I do it to get into a shape to freshen my chi, to get started with internal work.